Every father who is in a war should think about his children. When they're grown up, when they see what their fathers did, they will be in the same situation that I am. And they never will live a normal life. Today, my life is the life of a housewife.
Links, 2, 3, 4.
I live in a little village, and my husband works in the forest service as an administrator.
Alles ausgemacht? Hast du es ausgemacht?
Our little grandson David is living with us because my daughter had a problem with drug addiction when he was born, so she couldn't take him. He is my life, and I think I do for him what I would have liked to do for my father when he was a child. If you can't change the past, maybe you can do something for the future.
Musst schon essen. Du musst ja nicht alle essen.
And I hope that he never will hold a rifle in his hand. I was born in 1945 in a little town near Munich. Nobody in Germany talked about the Second World War. We want to live again. People said we had trouble enough and misery enough, and now we want to live.
Über Stock und über Stein und den Wagen voller Wein fährt Enrico mit dem Esel nach Tarent. Auf dem Baum hat er noch Platz und da sitzt ein süßer Schatz und Enrico singt das Lied, das jeder kennt.
Frauen und Wein sind eine fröhliche Fracht. Fährst du sie ein, dann nimm dein Herz nur in Acht.
I never asked about my father. Never, because I was not aware that every child has a father. I didn't know anything about a complete family. I asked my grandmother, "Grandmother, do I have a father too?" And she said, "But Monica, every child has a father." And I asked my mother and said, "Where's my father?" And she said, like millions of men, he died for his country and he's dead and shut down. I believed her. I didn't know why I shouldn't believe her. For me, he was everything. He was a great man, he was a soldier, and everybody told me, if my father had been alive, he was such a nice man and he would do everything for me. My mother didn't like it that I call her mother or mom, and so I started to call her Ruth. We didn't like each other at all. I loved my grandmother, but I couldn't get along with my mother, not at all. We were like water and fire. One day, when I was about 11 years old, it was a very hot day and I wanted to go swimming. And she said, "No, you won't go. You will do your work and after that you will go." And in this moment, I was full of hate. And I said to her, "You and your goddamn dog and everything." And she looked at me and she said, You are like your father, and one time you will die like him." I said to my grandmother, "What does she mean with I will die like Amon? My father died in the Second World War. How can I die like he died?" After a while, grandmother said, "Monica, they hanged him." And I said, "Oh, they hanged him? Why?" And she said, "They killed the Jews." And I didn't know anything about Jews. I've never seen a Jew in my life. The only one I knew who was a Jew was Jesus and the people around him. But the Jews had lived in Germany. I didn't know. Nobody knew from the younger generation. I wanted to know what happened to the Jews, and I wanted to know how my father was involved. And so I had just one person, and that was my grandmother, my mother's mother. And so she started to explain. She told me about the Nazis and the Jews. In Europe, in Germany, in Poland, in Romania, she educated me in a way that I felt guilty, because grandmother felt guilty too. She felt guilty too. My father was the commander of the Plaszow concentration camp. He was there for 500 days exactly. He was responsible for the death of thousands of people.
I got to Camp Plaszow, and I was assigned to clean barracks. It was the third day when one very tall SS walked into the barrack. This was Amon Get, and he was the new commandant of Plaszow. I was cleaning a window. He stopped in front of me, and he said to the woman that took care of us, the orderly, he says, "I want her in my house. If a Jewish girl is smart enough to clean a window on a sunny day, she'll probably be good for me." Every day, my grandmother and I, we were talking about these two girls, the Helenas, you know? I really didn't know who he was. I saw SS uniform, and I saw a very huge figure. I mean, he very tall. It was the first time that I heard the name of a victim, and the first name was Helena and Susanna. The very first day when I arrived, there was another woman there already. Her name was also Helen. He asked me my name. I said, "I am Helena." He said, "I have one, Helena. Your name will be Susanna."
Yeah, it's like a Nazi to say, your name is Helena, I don't need a Helena, I have already Helena, so your name is Susanna.
My first job was to iron his shirt. As I'm ironing the shirt, he slapped me so hard on my cheek. He said, "You stupid Jew, you don't even know how to iron a shirt properly." He says, "In Vienna, a girl your age knows how to iron a shirt, but you too dumb." And I started to cry. And he hit me so hard again. And that moment, I realized that I have to grow up. I'm no more child. I'm no more with my mother. I am here, and I have to obey. Amenged lived in the most beautiful villa that was built specifically for him, and he ordered us to live there. We were not allowed to go out and mingle with other people. He had a woman living with him. Her name was Ruth.
She loved this man more than anybody else in this world.
She was a very pretty young woman with dark hair. She had a little doggy, black dog, that she carried all the time under her arm.
I can't explain that, the feeling Ruth had for my father, my mother had for my father.
He lived like a king. And he had his mistress with him, and he had those 2 slaves. And unfortunately, I was one of them.
I read in the newspaper that Steven Spielberg was making a film called Schindler's List. And so I went to this film, and I was looking for my father. The first half hour, I think, there was no Amon Goeth. And then, suddenly, there was a car driving through the ghetto. And I knew from the first moment,
Yeah, well, it's top down, I'm fucking freezing.
this is my father. I knew it. I knew it. I had the photo of my father, and it was the same profile, just the same. And then the shock I had when this young woman said, Herr Kommandant, I do just my work. And my father looked at her and he said, me too. I do my job too. I kill you now.
Unterscharführer.
Jawohl.
Shoot her.
Herr Kommandant! I'm only trying to do my job.
Yeah, I'm doing mine.
Sir, she's foreman of construction.
We're not going to have arguments with these people.
Okay.
Oh, shoot her! Here, on my authority.
It will take more than that.
I'm sure you're right.
I started to hate that Spielberg. I hated him. When I came home, I was sick. Spielberg told me the truth. And for telling me the truth, I attacked him. Because I didn't want to know everything, you know?
Als reicher Mann führen können. Aber er tat das nicht. Er nutzte sein Geld, um uns zu retten. Ist es da ein Wunder, dass er unser Held ist?
Schindler setzt durch, dass er über 1000 Juden mit nach Brünlitz nehmen darf. Er lässt die sogenannte Schindlerliste schreiben, die den Juden das Leben schenkt.
I found out that Helen is living in the United States because on New Year's Eve there was a documentary about Schindler's survivors.
I had participated in a documentary made for German TV.
Ich denke, dass ihn eine höhere Macht geleitet hat.
And when I saw her, I liked her. Just from seeing that woman, I thought I ever knew this woman in my life. I always wanted to meet Helen, so I wrote a letter to her. I didn't write very much, but I wrote her that I always would have liked to meet her in my life. And that is the truth.
I received a letter from Monica, and I'm very touched. I realized how much she wanted to meet with me, and I didn't think a few years ago that I'd be able to do it, but I thought it over, and I understand how important it is for her and others like her to find out the truth. She says that she knows how difficult it is for me, but it is difficult for her as well.
She will be scared to see me. I know that, and in a way, I'm scared too to see her because of all her pain.
The children of the perpetrators, I can understand. I mean, in time heals. I mean, years ago, I wouldn't look at it that way, maybe, because we had such a hard time with our lives that we couldn't think of this situation, like the perpetrators' children, because we had a hard time making it. But now it's different. I thought it over a lot. And I am going to meet Monica, which years ago didn't think that I would be able to.
Ken's back there.
I never thought I would be willing to go back to Poland, but I want to go to Plaszów and go to the villa if it's still there, because maybe they will bring some closure for me.
I am very happy that Helen has agreed to meet me in Poland, but I don't know what I will say to her. You must understand, I can't say I regret. I can't say I'm sorry for all that evil. I think at least she should know that I'm not like my father.
I will be with my daughter, Vivian. At least one of my children will be with me. I know that it's going to be painful for her, but she wants to do it. She wants to do it. She said to me, I think it's a good thing, Mom.
David, Pussy. Pussy.
Ich mach mit Tommy.
It's maybe my last chance to see her. Now she is coming to Krakow, I come to Krakow. You never know what will happen. We can't wait for the next 60 years, you know.
a beautiful area. I played on the castle. I used to go sled riding with my sisters. Well, I had a happy childhood here. And I had happy memories from my school, my friends. I was very, very fond of the city of Krakow. I was 14 when the war broke out. Nothing worried me. I really didn't think of anything bad can happen to us. But within a short time, we were told that we all have to move to the ghetto. We had only a few days to take our belongings, whatever we could, and walked to the part of Krakow that was surrounded with stone walls. Within a couple of months, 2 SS walked into our room and took my father away. They picked him and dragged him out. And he, with a smile on his face, turned around to put us at ease, and he said, "Don't worry, children. They need me. They're taking me to work. Don't worry." But they took him to the square, where there were a lot of people already gathered there. And then we saw them sitting there for days with no water, with no food, and sending them away. And then more people were dragged out from the houses. But still, we didn't believe that they're being taken to death. My father was sent away. I found out after the war he was taken to Belzec, where all the people were gassed.
May I speak to Helen Rosenzweig?
Excuse me.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Helen?
Yes?
Yes, Monica.
Hello, Monica.
Monica?
Good morning.
Good morning, Helen.
So you here somewhere near close the hotel?
Yeah.
Are you here somewhere? Okay, well, I'm here with my daughter.
I know.
And her name is Vivian.
I know.
And,
You want to meet at the monument?
okay.
Yeah.
I would like to say a prayer.
And I would like to light a candle there.
And I feel that will...
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay.
In 30 minutes, okay?
Monica?
Yeah.
Monica.
I received your letter.
And you seem like a very sensitive person. And I have to tell you things that are very tragic. And I will refer to Amon Get. I have to disconnect myself when I speak to you because they just quite tragic things that are. So I will
Refer to him as Amon Get, Monica.
He's Amon. I never said father. He's Amon.
I just have to tell you that
I feel for you. And I see you shortly.
Okay. I'm very happy to see you.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
I see you soon. Okay? Bye-bye, Monica.
Bye-bye, Helen.
okay? Yeah. I'll be with you in a minute.
Okay.
It was a selfish thing for him to have a child. As a mother, I understand that children somehow suffer because of their parents' background. Monica was traumatized by the fact that she found out who her father was in reality. And I guess I am the one that can tell her a lot about it because I lived under his roof. Are you okay, honey?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm so glad you're here with me. Oh my God, you're here. First, I didn't want you to come. I don't know. I guess I wanted to protect you.
I feel for Monica. I think she wants to know a lot about her parents, just like I want to know a lot about my parents, but some things just cannot be answered.
I want to ask her, what did Ruth do in those times when she was with Armand? And at least I would like to know, how can a young girl survive in this hopelessness? Because I know I never would have made it. Never.
What a beautiful day today. I guess someone is with us.
But I think most important for me is to see her. To see her.
To jesteśmy w Podgórzu.
Już w tej chwili tak.
We are in the part of Podgórz where the ghetto was originally.
What does it say, Mom?
In years of between 1943 to 1945, few thousand Jews were killed, and they don't know the names, but the only name is Jews.
Mom? Mom?
Monica? Hi, Monica. Merlin, this is my daughter, Vivian.
Vivian.
It's okay. I did it for myself, too. I need this, too. Those are my people here. I need to come here, and my mother's remnants are still here.
I know that. She's buried here.
Well, my friend Adam buried her.
I know. Adam.
I had a boyfriend in Plaszow. And he was very active with the underground group. He felt that we have to fight back when the time comes. One day I was in the yard, and there comes Gert. You know, he used to ride a white horse. And he stopped, he says, Susanna? He says, where is Adam? I looked up at him, I said, I don't know. I saw him on his horse very quickly down the road. Before I knew, I hear 2 shots. He killed him. Adam had been by my mother's side all the time while she was ill. And Adam was by her side when she died. And he told me that he buried her. But you see, because Ahmed killed Adam, I can never find my mom's body. He was a monster. He was a living monster. He enjoyed what he was doing, but he did it out of pleasure because I saw his face after killing. He looked content. He whistled coming through the yard. And when he was restless and he didn't sleep, I could hear his steps upstairs, and that was the first thing, 6 o'clock in the morning when people were marching to work, that he would disappear. And he had a couple of hats hanging near the doorway, and I even knew what kind of hat he's going to put on that he's going to kill people. We were very attuned to him. We lived with this man day and night out, and it's for going. Do you think something happened to him as a young man? Did somebody did something to him that he was so evil? Why, when he hit me, why he stood there so content?
That he's able to treat 2 young girls in that way. And the fear of these girls. I think I believe everything, but I can't live with it. I can't live with Amnon and what he did to the girls and to the victims. But I know it is true. Why didn't Ruth help you? Why didn't she help you?
She covered her eyes to all that it was happening. She wanted to make believe like none of this is happening. That was my impression.
And this was?
She did say once to me, And I'm going to tell you because I want to make you feel good. It was your mother. She did stay in the kitchen and said to us, if I could help you, I would, but I can't.
I thought, okay, if Ruth was with him, she would have helped the victims. If he would have done wrong, there was still my mother, and she will do something.
I don't have anything bad to say about her, just the fact that you could love a monster like that.
Am I better than my father? She told me, you are like him and you will die like him. And so I was always looking in my life, maybe I am really like him. But I am not Hermann.
You have a choice.
Yes, I know.
And those people here died because of one man, Armageddon, in a cruel way. We just can't be silent. We just can't push things away. They're there. And you see, they disturb our lives. My children are affected, all my survivors' children, but we are traumatized people. And that's why I made this trip to find that little piece here.
I know. You know what people tell me in Germany? I went to school to speak to some children. Oh God, you are a strong person. I'm not a strong person. When the children are gone and the teachers are gone, I break down.
You break down. You have a right to break down. It's good, but you have a mission. Look at those monuments. What do they mean? There are bodies here, innocent bodies, good people. I don't think God wants it.
I know that, and therefore, you know, when I see Vivian, I feel like Amon. I'm Amon, and she will look at me and say, oh God, that goddamn daughter. And if she would be his daughter, I would think the same.
But my daughter doesn't feel that
No,
way.
I would say, oh God, just go to hell. And
If the children of perpetrators suffer, let them suffer. I hated all the other children of perpetrators. You know, the daughter of Hermann Göring was living near our house. When I saw that girl, I didn't like that girl. I thought about her father. She was the daughter of Hermann Göring. The children are innocent, but I still see their fathers, and I can't help myself, but I never would have any pity with children of perpetrators, never.
Oskar Schindler was a Nazi. He was one of all those people that were upstairs in the living room. I saw him very frequently, but he was different.
One time I found a piece of a newspaper with a picture of Oskar Schindler. And what did I read? He saved Jews, more than 1,000 Jews. And I asked my mother, do you know that man? He is from Plaszow. And Ruth said, oh, it's Oskar.
Oskar Schindler was a very good friend of Armageddon because I saw them embracing each other, and Oskar Schindler used to call him Mooney, which was his nickname, Mooney.
A couple of months later, I met him in Frankfurt with my mother, and he looked at me. He clapped on my shoulder and said, hi, Mooney. You can't deny your father. You're looking quite the same.
He would pat my head, don't worry, you'll be okay. And I was scared. I was scared because I said to myself, what? He's upstairs with them. Who is he? But there was something different about him.
I hoped Oscar would tell me something, but he wouldn't say anything. Nothing.
He pointed with a finger. He said, you see those people working there? Remember the story of Egypt? They were slaves. He says, they were freed, right? Remember they were freed? You'll be freed too.
And when we went home, I said to her, oh, Ruth, why didn't you marry Oscar? Then I would have a father, you know? I like him. He's a nice man. And Ruth smiled and she said, oh God, Monica, if I would have lived with Oscar, you never would have been born. I was thinking about that and I said, that's right. I'm Amon's daughter.
You're trying to understand something that I never understood. And maybe that's why I wanted to come here and have some closure.
I'm so happy to see you. So happy. And I'm happy that you are with her.
Oh, I couldn't do it without my daughter.
I think my mom was sympathetic to Monica, but she needed to limit it for her own preservation.
You know, I feel good doing this. Do you feel good doing this?
Yeah, I feel so good to be
Okay.
with you.
Okay, good to
Yes,
see you, Monica. Say hello to your little grandson.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye, Monica.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Vivian. Bye-bye.
I had a difficult time meeting with Monica because I felt bad for her. At the same time, I kept seeing him, remembering all the horrors that I experienced being in a villa. You know, she's trying to, talk about trying to, find answers from us. She has to work on it, honey. You work on it too.
Right, well, that's what it is.
All of you.
That's what I'm trying to say. She's got to separate the two, you know?
Well, it's hard because it's he was a perpetrator. I still wanted to go to the villa, and I thought it would be the right thing for me to ask Monica if she wants to come as well. Monica, I'm going to the villa. You want to go to the villa?
Yes,
I am going.
I will go. I will see. I want to see the kitchen and the little room.
Okay, I'm going.
You spent your life.
Okay.
Because grandmother told me, that you was downstairs.
Yes, downstairs.
In the kitchen.
There's a little room next to the kitchen.
Yeah.
But, with someone yet. I have a sense that she's more angry at her mother. She made up her mind. He was a killer, he was a murderer. But she's very confused, very angry with her mother. Did you notice that?
When Helen was speaking about Amon, I still was able to see all the fear in her eyes. And I can't remember to see such fear in the eyes of a human being just about one person. I have been to Plaszow before, but never to the villa. I know it is still there.
Bójcie się Boga. Bójcie się Boga.
That's it?
Bo naturalnie. Oh my God. That's my window on the bottom. Oh my God. The same color door. That's the color. That's the color door.
The same color?
The same color. The same color. Every room in that house brings sad memories, unfortunately, but I want to face them. This is the kitchen. That's the kitchen. But this wasn't here. This wasn't here. There was a big table here. What? Big table. This wasn't here. This was my room. This was my room. I used to stand here and look out. This is the window. I used to envy people. They walked to work, and I was all alone. They were marching to work. Camp was over there now. I can understand. They were going to Madrid over there, to the factory.
Where was Madrid?
Over there was the factories to the right. They were marching from the left to the right. This was my room. And I heard his footsteps. I shivered when I heard his footsteps. I feared those steps. I heard those steps upstairs. He wouldn't sleep. He would walk around. First thing in the morning, he would walk out of the villa at 6 o'clock, and I would hear shooting. He had the urge to kill, like an animal. You see those steps, Monica? I never went one step at a time. I always went like this, to be fast, as fast as I can, like this. And he pushed me down those steps. Yeah. You know how many times he pushed me down those steps? I can't even count them. Okay. Here, you see? I told you French door. Yeah. Okay? There was a big table over there where all the SS were entertaining over there. And this is where he used to go out. There he used to go out. And that's where he trained the dog.
Here?
Yeah, in the backyard. There were two large dogs in the house. One was black and white spots named Ralph, and the other one was beige and brown, Alf. Ralph was his favorite dog that he trained to rip people apart. The scenes that I have seen, those dogs, done to people, I can't explain. This was a bedroom. This was a large bedroom. They had a round bed. Round bed, right here, okay? Round bed. And this is where she used to lie a lot of time and put the masks on her face.
My mother, she had everything, you know.
I saw her most of the time with mixing yolks and cucumbers and lying on the bed with masks on her face.
Amon gave everything to her. She had no need, not at all.
I mean, this home was incredibly rich in everything. I mean, fresh fruit, meats, wine, liquor, anything that one can think of.
But you know what? I know Ruth. It was her house. I know my mother.
It was his house.
Yeah, but that was the way she liked to live. This was her way, with a piano, with people who played for her. She didn't see anything. She was just in the house. The camp was down. That's what she said. Not seeing...
Don't say that. She saw us downstairs. She heard shots.
She heard?
Oh, I mean, it was very obvious. You could hear. I mean, they were shooting like no tomorrow. You know how many thousands of people died?
Yeah, now, when you talk, when you tell me. Yeah. But what I heard when I was a child, he only killed some Jews because of...
Because they were Jews?
No, because of sanitary problems.
Yeah.
Because
they were just Jews.
Monica,
they
wouldn't go to a bathroom, they wouldn't use a bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore, there was a disease. And then when he saw some man...
Monica, please, I have to stop you right now.
That was
because
my history.
But from now on, you can see that it's the ignorance. It was just simply, we were tortured and killed because we were Jews. That's it, nothing else.
But you know, Helen, I knew that.
But now you shouldn't even say the other thing what other people say, because that's just not true.
I know.
This is wrongdoing. This is why people are misled, and they keep on. If it's repeated like that, danger will happen again. We have to start something different. It's not true.
I know that. And I knew it as a child too. But they were talking and talking and talking and talking.
Stop thinking that way. It's bad. It's dangerous.
We didn't think about that way.
From all the people that survived.
I have a chance with you. I have the greatest chance of my life. You know, I know that.
Okay, but don't think back that what this one said or this one said. Yeah, they had to have excuse. They have to have some kind of excuse.
Told me.
Well, she protected. Denial. Live in denial. No, we can't allow it. Words cannot explain.
I know.
The pain. It cannot.
It cannot.
I can't explain you what this room means to me. When I was treated like a criminal. Like criminal. Like a dirty Jew. I think that he felt he was a good German Nazi and he's doing his job, but there was also a personal hatred for Jews. After being with him under his command, I never feared death because I knew that he would kill me anyhow. I really was sure that he would kill me. During the day I was hardly here. I came in to straighten out the beds, and that was about it.
Because Ruth was sitting here?
They were lying around. They were loungers here.
There was a little dog, black little dog.
But there were two, three lounges that they were lying around. You know, I live with such fear constantly about him and what he's going to do next. And I saw the shooting and killing. You know, he was the only one in the camp who decided who is going to live and who is going to die. He was the only one.
One person told me, you know, they called your father the Emperor of Plaszow. He could do whatever he wanted to do.
There was no one else. That's why when they came for him, it was unbelievable that he was powerless suddenly. 2 civilians walked in to the villa, and he came down from the stairs, and I was just standing, just looking up to know what's going on. And I saw them handing the paper and him looking at the paper. Next thing I knew, he didn't go back. He reached for the belt and the hat, and he walked in the center with them out of the villa. Well, we didn't hear from him anymore. And we were in the villa not knowing what to do. For days, we assumed that he must be in prison. And then we found out that he was taken to prison by his own Germans because he was stealing people's goods, the belongings from Jews.
All the SS men did it. All the SS men kept money and had much for themselves.
He was shipping it himself to Austria, and they found out, and they denounced him, and they arrested him. And this was my luck. And we were alone, and all of a sudden, somebody rings the bell. And who is there but Oskar Schindler is standing on the step. And he said, "You coming with me?" And everything he told me came back to me. You will be safe. You'll be all right. You're coming with me to my factory. He kept his promise.
I still don't understand how an educated person like my father was could believe in the Nazi point of view. I can't understand that.
He was executed by the Polish authorities.
When Amon was hanged, I was still a baby. But 2 years ago, I saw the footage of his execution filmed by the Polish government.
When he was hanged, he was hanged 3 times. The 3rd time, when they hanged him, then he was dead. His neck was broken. Yeah, now he's dead.
I think he was spared by easy death. I mean, I didn't never look for revenge, but he should have suffered a little more. How he made people suffer.
Before my mother died, she said she didn't do enough for the Jews. And it was the first time that she said something like that. I knew it's true, but when she said it to me, I denied. I told her, Ruth, you did what you could. You couldn't do anymore against Amon. I was thinking maybe she would stay alive. She wouldn't do anything because I knew time is coming now. She already told me every day she will commit suicide. I knew she has a poison in her house. I came to visit her, and I rang the bell, and I knew she's dead, because she took the pills and it was just nothing. It was just silence. And I knew now she's dead. It was 1983. She was 65 years old. I found her in her bed under the picture of Arman. That was all.
Today, I felt like I finished a mission. I felt that actually being there, I will have some peace.
Promise.
Goodbye, Mom.
Bye, Helen.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
Vivian.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Two days after liberation, I met Joseph Jonas, and we got married before we came to the United States. He was a very special young man, very bright. Joseph tried very hard to live a normal life, but he was troubled. Excuse me. He would sit at the table, read his paper, and he would write his father's name over and over again. Solomon, Solomon. Excuse me. That's what the Germans did to us. My husband was affected badly. He lived with this and tried so hard, but then he couldn't deal with it anymore. We've been together 35 years. And in 1980, my husband took his life. He wrote me a letter, and he said, "Dearest, I can't go on. I'm being haunted every day of my life. Forgive me." And he was gone. I thought after I lived through concentration camp, my life would be stable, but it wasn't. I miss him. He would be very proud of me. In spite of everything, I love life. I think I was spared for a reason. I was lucky to have children, such wonderful children. And it's hard to see that my children are affected by having their parents being victims of those traumatic times. It's not an easy task for them.
People have said to me, "Vivian, you know, you weren't in the Holocaust. Your parents were in the Holocaust." And I know that, intellectually I know that, But emotionally at times, you know, talking about it, not that I can picture myself physically there, but I can feel the pain that my parents went through.
In a way, I know that someday when I'm gone, I have peace because I know my parents and my family and my dear friends will be not forgotten.
For Helen, it's time to bring closure. But for me, it was not closure for me. I think it was the beginning of another life. A life where I am able to live with the truth. Tomorrow, I will go home. I know my husband. He will ask me, what do you say about Helen? I know that because he told me to go and see her. Oh, I will say, I will tell you, but we will need a long time till everything is set. My little grandson, David, I'm teaching him everybody is the same. It doesn't matter in what religion you believe. It doesn't matter if you are black or white.
Ach, die sind ganz süß. Rainer, das sind die Schweine.
Da vorne sind die Schweine, David. Das ist hin. Da vorne.
Ja, das weiß ich ja schon.
Das weißt du schon.
When David is at school and he will learn about the Second World War, I will tell him about his great-grandfather. But I think for him, it won't be so hurtful. I'm convinced it will be better for the generation who is growing up now. I don't have many belongings from my father, just 2 cufflinks. And my mother gave it to me when I was about 15 years old. And beside his photograph, she had this cigarette case. And I asked her, is this from the Jews? And she said, no, Monica, it's from your grandfather. But now I don't know. I wouldn't believe anything anymore.